Hey everyone, it's me again, Spencer, back again this week with a quick video talking about pencils. And there's a lot to talk about with each particular material that I use, but I had a specific comment on my last video requesting something that talked about pencils and sketching. Now, I'm an industrial designer by trade. I happen to illustrate as well. So this demonstration is going to be specifically regarding sketching with pencil for industrial designers. Now, one of the things you want to remember is as you sketch, your emotion, your expression is carried through in each stroke. So a word of caution, I guess, if you're just starting out, it's actually better to start sketching with a pen. This is my favorite, the Paper Made Flare. As always, the link will be in the video for you there. But occasionally I'll sketch with a pencil. Typically if I'm doing something that's meant to be a bit more expressive, or if I'm sketching something like apparel or an automotive product, something that's meant to convey emotion, because the medium itself lends itself to being a little bit more expressive. So I'll go through kind of my two pencils that I use. You'll see that I have 5 of this kind and 1 of this kind. That's because I tend to like this kind more. So this first pencil is the Prismacolor Premier. Let's see if we can focus there. Prismacolor Premier Black PC935. I'll post a link on those. And we've also have here a Prismacolor Very Thin 747 Black, made in Mexico. And these two pencils, I'm sure you can find similar pencils. It doesn't have to be Prismacolor brand. This is just what I've always used. But just want to point out some differences here. So you'll notice that the Premier pencil, the one on the left here, has a lot thicker lead. So if I compare the height of this lead section here to the height of this other lead section, this one has a lot thicker lead. If I look at it from the top, you can see that the lead is definitely a lot thicker and rounder. Now, the Prismacolor Premier lead is a lot softer than the Prismacolor Very Thin lead. This one tends to be a little waxier. This one's a little bit softer. So, for example, if I sketch an expressive line, just like I would with pen, this line is a little bit thicker, bolder, and I don't have to put as much pressure on, but if I did put more and more pressure, I can get some nice dark lines. With the Very Thin, oh, there goes my point, I kind of have to push a lot harder to get as dark a line. And you may not be able to tell on video, but let's do a little red line here to show you the difference. So on top we've got our Premier. Can't spell tonight. Ah, there we go. Premier. On the bottom we have Very Thin. So these lines tend to be a little bit more on the gray side. These give you a nice rich black. Now, choosing your pencil is as critical as choosing the paper that you work with. I'm working with tracing paper tonight. You could work with a more expensive marker paper. If you do, I recommend using something like this Copic marker pad. And the reason I recommend tracing paper or marker paper rather is it tends to have a nice, what I call tooth to the paper. So if we're able to slice through this piece of paper, you can imagine some papers are a little bit more rough. Some are rough but have a different pattern. And if you had something like, say, a nice cold pressed watercolor paper, you might end up with a profile like this. Well, the tooth on this paper, it just really takes the pencil nicely. If I were to do the same thing on a piece of printer paper, I'm going to steal this piece of paper here, James Conner's sketches are on the back, and do the same thing. It just doesn't have the same effect, okay? And it's really subtle. There's the tracing paper, there's the printer paper. Printer paper is just a little too rough, and you pick up a lot more noise, I guess, if you will, if I'm shading with this pencil. So because pencil by nature is, or the way you make a mark with pencil rather, is by depositing essentially the tip of the material on the paper. One of the other things you'll notice that I do as I sketch is I'll sketch, lift, rotate. You kind of have to catch it. It might be really hard to see, but I'm sketching a line, lifting, rotating. So watch the label on the pencil. Watch the label on the pencil, and you can kind of see. And the reason I do that is if I blow up my pencil here, so there's a big piece of my pencil, and here's my nice rough paper. As I move this pencil on the paper, I'm essentially dulling the tip, right? So now the tip of my pencil would kind of have this shape, right? So then what I'm doing by rotating is I'm taking this newly sharpened bit of the pencil, which essentially now looks like this, rotating this around so that as I make my new stroke on the paper, I'm using this pointy bit of the pencil right there on the paper. So a little trick makes a big difference. And the reason you do that is so that your sketches will seem clean and crisp with each stroke of the pencil, so you don't have to keep sharpening it. Now, how do I sketch with pencil? I'm going to give you two examples. I'm probably skipping over a lot of stuff here, but certainly we'll do more videos in the future like this. So if I were sketching something like, let's say, a utility knife, for argument's sake, I may start with, let's say, some shape like this. Okay, nice and light. Well, one of the nice things about pencil is I can change the pressure that I'm applying. And by doing so, I'm able to kind of sketch light until I get it right. So let's say this is my grip here. I've got an affordance, and I want to have some kind of rubber grip right through there. And because I sketched lightly, I can come in, make some changes like that. It's a really simple side view sketch. And I can do just a quick perspective sketch. If you want, you could sketch your perspective wireframe out. Okay, so let's say I have two sketches like this, nice and easy. And now I want to kind of pop these with pencil. Well, let's throw in a blade here. Show a blade kind of sticking out. Same thing over here on my perspective sketch. And I'm going to put this pencil to the side because I've been using it, this one as well, and jump to my little stub pencil here. So one of the cool things you can do, there's two ways to kind of shade with pencil, and I'll show you two of those. I'll show you each of those ways rather on either sketch. So the first way I like to do it is if you take a Prismacolor Premier and you take this long lead section and you lay it really flat on the paper, okay, you can kind of stroke so that you create this nice shadowed area. Now, like I always do, I'm trying to apply some line weight on this sketch, and this will just kind of help things pop. Now, the shading technique's really cool because it's really fast. I'm going to rotate my page here. Now, with pencil, it's kind of tricky. So here I can identify I've already made a mistake. I'm used to putting my pinky finger on the paper, so sometimes things get a little smudgy. If you really want to be careful, you can just keep wiping your hand. I've got a buddy, he would actually lick his hand and wipe it on his jeans. So you can do that if you want, or just not worry about it, and if you want to Photoshop it later, you can. So here I'm just going to ghost in, get a nice thick line there on the bottom. And with pencil, like I was saying, my lines tend to be a little bit more expressive, so I'll extend things out, for example, and then come in here and clean up. Now, to get this reading, I've got my pencil on the side, and I'm just gonna kind of shade in a little bit of a shadow core, not quite to the edge of the knife, because I want to suggest that there's a little bit of ambient or reflected light. Same thing on the top here. Okay, so really quickly I have some indication of form. And give me just a sec here, let me sharpen these. Okay, so now that's done. I'm just gonna re-outline this area like so, and I've got this little grip, or toggle rather, to extend my knife blade in and out. I'm just gonna outline that, and you can see just by varying my alignment, I'm really just pulling some quick form and detail out on this design. So pretty cool, right? Haven't really done much, just some quick light pencil. If I wanted to, maybe add a little bit of texture with a couple little dots like so. You can also, because this is tracing paper, I could actually take this sheet, flip it on its back, shade in my grip, and when I flip this over, it's going to do that same thing that I do with my markers, where I get a little bit of a mid-tone on the other side. Okay, so just like that, got a grip, I've got my blade, and my little toggle. So the second way I sketch, or rather shade with marker, or sorry, pencil, is sometimes I will do hatching or a motor stroke. So just like I would with a pen, I can come in with a pencil and shade using a series of lines sketched at an angle in quick succession, and that will help me communicate shadow or shade as necessary. Okay, so how do I do that on, say, a curved area like this? Well, what I'll do is I'll actually come in, create an outline, and hatch that outline in. So, not necessarily as clean, but it is kind of quick. If you just want to quickly show something being shaded in. So two different approaches to kind of shading with pencil. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, pencil itself tends to be really gestural, so you can, be really expressive if you want. So let's say I was sketching something like a computer mouse. I can kind of work this in here, maybe sketch another shape, and then start to kind of blend these shapes together. So this is what I would call kind of a gestural sketch. right? Where I'm just kind of almost searching out the form as I'm sketching, and not really worrying too much about getting everything right all at once. And the cool thing about this, I think anyways, is it really takes a lot of the stress out of how you're sketching your product and worrying about the finished thing right away. Now, just to kind of show you guys, I can take my very thin pen now that I have my kind of gestural framework. And because this pencil is a lot crisper and tends to hold its tip a little bit better, I can come in and use this to kind of pull out some of those design lines that I want to emphasize. Okay. Maybe there's a little bit of a button here on the side or something that I can sketch in. So there's that mistake again where I've put too much pressure on the paper and I haven't cleaned my finger off, and some of that smudging on paper. In fact, if you wanted to, you could keep a piece of paper on the side, wipe your smudges there, just to keep things clean. So a couple other cool things you can do, since I've kind of got this rough marker outline. With pencil, one of the other things I like to do, so I'm going to call this a gaming mouse because I actually want to use the orange marker here. So I'm just going to kind of flood fill or wash really quickly this sketch with some marker. And on the front side, let's blow on this. Sometimes the tracing paper, because it's not absorbent, the marker will still be a little bit wet on the backside. So now what I'm going to do is get my wheel here kind of defined a little bit better. Maybe there's a design detail around that. So something like this, I may use my hatching, for example. So there's that other shading technique I was talking about. And just to punch some of these lines, I'm going to use my Premier pencil. Just to give myself some line weight. I'm trying not to really trace this as I'm doing it, but rather resketch. That way it keeps a lot of the line. So now, just to add a little bit of shading, what I'm going to do is use that technique over the marker on the back side, where I introduce a little bit of a shadow core going through the whole thing on the top here. And you'll notice I've left a little bit of a gap to simulate some reflected light in my environment. And I'm just going to come around the bottom here, just hit that. And on the inside, because I want to show that this surface is changing, I'm shading with a gradient out this way, reinforce that with a contour line. Okay. So just a couple quick tips on how I sketch with pencil. If you like what you see, tell your friends. Definitely subscribe. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll be the first to know that the video posts, because you'll actually get an email in your inbox Only when I post the video though, and I don't even have your email. YouTube has it, so there's no mailing list where I'm going to send you a bunch of stuff or anything. The cool thing is just that you're the first to know. So if I post a video at 3 a.m. or midnight, you wake up, you'll know first thing in the morning what I just sketched, and you'll be able to see everything. So thanks for watching. Let's see, visit my Instagram page. I'm at sketchaday.com, sketchaday.com, or you can visit me on facebook.com/sketchaday. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next week.